Hey everyone, welcome to the first lecture of chapter 11, and today we're talking about third declension I-stem nouns, but only masculine and feminine I-stems. There are neuter I-stems, they look different. So what is an I-stem? Well, an I-stem, if it's masculine or feminine, ends in I-U-M in the genitive plural. And that's it. It's really that easy. So instead of having a UM in the genitive plural, it has an IUM. So it's one little tiny change. But they're very common in Latin, so it's important that we know them and we can distinguish them. Okay, so how can you tell if a noun is an I-stem? Well, there are three ways. Okay, so the first way is if the noun ends in is or es in the nominative singular. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So like Venus, okay, which is masculine, and it means end, like we get the word final from it. Okay, so since it ends in is, or just is in the nominative singular, that means that it is an I-stem. And another example of a word that is similar to this that ends in es is nubase, which we have in this chapter. Nubase, nubis, which is feminine, and it means cloud. Okay, and all that means is that it'll be declined just like regular third declension, except it'll have an IUM in the genitive plural instead of a UM. Okay, so that's the first way to tell if it's an I-stem. It's IS or ES in the nominative singular, like Venus and nubase. Okay, the second way to tell an I-stem, if it ends in NS or RS in the nominative singular. Okay, here are a couple of examples of those words. So mons, montis, okay, masculine, and mons means mountain. Okay, so that's an I-stem. And the second example I'm going to give you is mors. Mors, mortis, feminine, and it means death. And so we get like mortal, immortal, mortify, mortgage. They all come from the word mors, meaning death. Okay, but these two are I-stems because they end in ns, like mons, or rs, like mors, in the nominative singular. Okay, the third way is slightly more complicated. And that is if the noun has one syllable in the nominative singular, okay, and then two syllables in the genitive singular, and then the base ends in two consonants. Okay, that sounds kind of complicated, so let me give you an example. Okay, nox, noctis, feminine night. Okay, so what do I, okay, one syllable in the nominative. So one syllable in the nominative, nokes, that's just one syllable. Two syllables in the genitive, noctis, two syllables. And then when we take the base, which remember is always the genitive singular minus the genitive singular ending, and we see that it ends in two consonants in a row, a C and a T, so this one's an I stem. Here's an example of one that's not. Dukes, dukis, right? It's one syllable. If you're familiar with the Dr. Seuss rhyme, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, I use this with my students. I'll say one syllable, two syllable, red syllable, I stem. The second part doesn't really make sense, but it's just fun to say. Okay, so it has to be one syllable, two syllable. So we take away the genitive singular ending, and see there's a vowel consonant. So dukes is not an I stem. Okay, but nokes is an I stem. But all that means is that it's going to have IUM in the genitive plural. Okay, so let's set up a declension chart. And I'm just going to abbreviate the cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative. And we'll have singular and plural. And let's use the word Venus as our noun. So it's Venus, Venus, and if we take the base, then it's FIN, right, which in many languages is the word for end. Okay, and now that I have my base, I'm going to add endings. I already have my nominative and genitive, Venus, Venus, Fini, Finem, Fine, and then in the plural, Fines, Finium, there's where the I stem comes in, IUM, Finibus, Fines, Finibus. Okay, and that is how you decline a third declension masculine feminine I stem. The only difference is that it has IUM in genitive plural instead of UM, and the trick is just identifying the different types of I stem. One thing that I'll mention to you now before I conclude that you'll find out later in the book, but just in case you come across this word. So there is one word, or actually a couple. So canis, canis, which means dog, right? Really common word. Kawe kanem, beware of the dog. This word is not an I stem. Okay, there are a few other words that do that in Latin, but canis is just a really common word. So you'll see canum in the genitive plural instead of what you would normally expect to see canium. Okay, so I wanted to make that a more obscure point there. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys, and looking forward to seeing you next time.